While Americans are already paying more for Japanese-made vehicles, Japan might be gearing up to deliver a financial strike that could shake the U.S. economy. In the ongoing U.S.-Japan auto trade tensions, the U.S. has continued to increase tariffs on Japanese auto parts, especially in the EV sector. A steep 25% tariff on these parts has significantly driven up prices for brands like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan in the American market, costing them their long-held competitive advantage. Over the final quarter of 2024, a mass exit unfolded, not from just one or two nations, but a wave of countries pulling back simultaneously. Brazil withdrew a staggering $55.9 billion, while Ireland slashed $42 billion. The Cayman Islands and Canada weren't far behind, cutting $41.2 billion and $37 billion respectively. India and Norway each pulled back nearly $35 billion. Even Japan and China reduced their holdings by $7.8 billion each. This broad-scale sell-off signals a clear trend. Nations are beginning to lose confidence in holding U.S. assets and treasury bonds, despite the dollar's global dominance. So the question emerges, are these countries preparing for a major pivot in their economic playbooks? Japan's actions go beyond just words. Tokyo is taking deliberate steps, offloading a considerable chunk of its U.S. Treasury bond holdings. As the second largest holder of U.S. debt, owning over $1.1 trillion, Japan sold $30 billion worth of bonds in February 2025 alone. That move placed significant downward pressure on the dollar and pushed up U.S. interest rates, causing a ripple of financial stress. It's a bold, risky move, Japan flexing its financial clout to directly influence America's economy. On another front, Japan is relocating its car production out of the United States. Major manufacturing operations are now shifting to countries like Mexico and across Southeast Asia. This strategic move helps Japan avoid U.S. tariffs while maintaining access to the American market. Toyota and Honda are already investing heavily in new plants across these regions, where production costs are lower and shielded from Washington's protectionist policies. This shift doesn't just hurt American car buyers, it rattles global investors too. Japan reducing its stake in U.S. bonds sends a warning, making investors think twice. Even cars labeled Made in USA are at risk because over half of the parts used in vehicles sold domestically come from overseas. Countries like Canada, Mexico, Japan, South Korea, and Germany. These global links are vital to the American auto supply chain, says Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics. If trends continue, within the next year, car prices could spike by $5,000 to $10,000. That means buying the same vehicle you could afford last year may now cost significantly more. It's a direct blow to middle-class American families already stretched thin by rising costs in the post-pandemic era. Over 7.3 million vehicles were sold last year, and now every one of them could be hit with a 25% import tax. The proposal is clear, a 25% tariff on all vehicles not produced inside the U.S. If this policy takes hold, the immediate outcome will be painful, an unavoidable hit to American consumers. With over 7 million imported cars sold annually in the U.S., it's clear how dependent the country is on foreign vehicles. But with this looming tax, the entire auto sector is facing potential upheaval. Car manufacturers won't wait. They'll react fast. Some might halt shipments. Others could reduce buyer incentives, especially on models designed for U.S. customers. The clearest impact? New car prices are expected to jump from today's average of $49,000 to as much as $52,000 or even $53,000. That surge will force millions to delay their purchases or switch to the used car market, potentially triggering a wider consumer spending slowdown with consequences far beyond the auto world. Calls to bring manufacturing back to American soil sound promising, but in reality, it's far from simple. Even in ideal circumstances, building a new auto plant in the U.S. takes 2.5 to 3.5 years before production can even start. And it's not just bricks and mortar. It involves a complete overhaul of the supply chain, retraining technical staff, and investing in updated technologies. Combine that with the U.S.'s higher labor and operational costs, and competing with cheaper imports becomes a serious challenge. In short, reshoring is no quick fix. It demands consistent policy support to work in the long run, and the markets aren't waiting. Even before these proposed changes are implemented, a single trading session was enough to trigger noticeable market reactions. General Motors shares fell by 5%, Ford saw a 3% drop, and Stellantis followed suit in the downward trend. These aren't just momentary fluctuations, they signal deeper, long-term concerns among investors. There's a clear recognition that increasing production and import costs will drastically reduce profit margins. One auto industry executive even cautioned that these policies could steer the entire sector toward a recession, triggering ripple effects throughout the supply chain. This isn't just an isolated industry problem, it threatens the entire economic ecosystem. But will this seemingly strategic move be enough to bring real change? Amid bold promises to revive domestic manufacturing, it's the consumers who are footing the bill. They're facing rising car prices, disappearing incentives, and shrinking options on the showroom floor. For middle-income Americans, financing a car may become a long-term financial strain. As the price of new cars climbs, used car prices are also being pushed up, sending shockwaves through the entire supply chain. Affordable options are vanishing, and the dream of car ownership is slipping further away for the middle class. Despite promises of revitalization, it's the buyer who is suffering the most. If this pattern persists, we must confront a difficult question. Is the American dream of owning a car becoming unattainable for the very people who once defined it? Meanwhile, the phrase, "If this person wins, I'm moving to Canada," is no longer just a dramatic election year outburst. Tens of thousands of Americans are actually following through. And these aren't the unemployed or disenfranchised. They're tech professionals, scientists, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who have played pivotal roles in America's advancement. So why are they losing confidence in the country's future? According to recent data, the number of Americans actively seeking to leave has reached historic highs. In the past, threats to leave the U.S. after an election were rarely serious. But this time, they're real. Immigration consultancies and citizenship services are overwhelmed with applications. Ireland has seen a 50% spike in American passport applications in just 1 year. Germany's Max Planck Institute has reported an influx of requests from American scientists and experts. And it's not just individuals. Entire families are exploring relocation, driven by concerns about their children's future and quality of life. Many no longer believe America offers long-term safety. A key factor is the rollback of protections for vulnerable groups. Under recent policies, many LGBTQ+, immigrant and minority rights have been dismantled. Families with transgender or LGBTQ+ members worry their loved ones will face discrimination, violence, and a lack of legal protection. Meanwhile, intellectuals and skilled workers are leaving. Scientists, doctors, and engineers, people vital to national growth, are seeking better opportunities elsewhere. Countries like Canada, Germany, and Ireland are actively attracting this talent, and institutions like the Max Planck Institute are seeing record interest. Safety concerns also loom large. Gun violence, racial tensions, and political instability have created a volatile atmosphere. The loosening of gun regulations has made firearms more accessible, contributing to a spike in mass shootings, especially in schools and neighborhoods. Many parents now fear for their children's safety and are choosing not to wait for the situation to worsen. But this exodus isn't just a social dilemma, it's setting the stage for a major economic crisis. When highly educated, skilled workers leave, the impact is immense. First, the U.S. is facing a growing brain drain. Key sectors like tech, healthcare, and scientific research are losing top talent with no solid strategy to retain them. Second, the demographics are shifting. As young, productive workers exit the country, the labor force shrinks and the aging population continues to expand, creating a serious imbalance that could affect the nation's future growth and stability. This trend suggests the U.S. could soon face a massive financial strain in sustaining pension funds and Social Security programs. On top of that, consumer spending and private investment are on the decline. As wealthy individuals leave the country, businesses lose a significant portion of their customer base. The economy loses momentum, and investor confidence begins to erode. Diminishing consumer demand can trigger a dangerous domino effect. Companies may respond by cutting jobs and pulling back on local investments. If this continues, one must ask, can the U.S. still hold its place as the world's top economy? Although Donald Trump postponed a 25% tariff on Canadian imports, tensions have already flared, and Canada isn't standing idle. Provinces have started pushing back swiftly, targeting vital U.S. economic interests. But is this bold counteraction a calculated strategy or a dangerous risk? British Columbia, BC, the key trade gateway to Alaska, wasted no time awaiting federal guidance. Premier David Eby declared, "We will not sit back while our economy is under siege." In response, BC proposed tolls on U.S. commercial trucks using the province as a route to Alaska, a corridor responsible for over $720 million in trade each year. That wasn't all. BC also announced a ban on liquor imports from Republican-led states like California, Texas, and Florida, directly hitting the U.S. wine and spirits sector. This move underscored BC's firm stance in the escalating trade dispute. Canada's federal leadership could not ignore the growing conflict. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made it clear, "Canadians are reasonable and polite, but we won't back down when our nation's well-being is at stake." Canada officially introduced a 25% tariff on $155 billion worth of American goods, targeting aluminum, steel, consumer products, and agricultural exports. Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc emphasized that while Canada isn't seeking a trade war, it will not hesitate to retaliate if provoked. Other provinces followed suit. Nova Scotia banned U.S. companies from bidding on public contracts and doubled tolls for American trucks. Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith warned that the Trump administration was forcing Canada into a defensive posture, and both countries could suffer as a result. Manitoba and Newfoundland joined the movement by blocking U.S. liquor imports and reevaluating contracts to reduce dependence on American suppliers. Canadian businesses also began to act, boycotting U.S. products and increasing pressure on American producers. But Canada's strategy is evolving beyond retaliation. It's actively reshaping its trade alliances. Under the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, Canada is expanding its exports to Japan, Australia, and Southeast Asia. Trade Minister Mary Ong noted, "We're developing a resilient trade ecosystem, one that reduces our reliance on the U.S." Canada is also boosting exports to Europe through the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement CETA, leveraging tariff-free trade access to diversify its markets. To support this shift, the government is offering financial incentives to help businesses pivot and maintain economic stability during these tense times. Trade clashes between the U.S. and Canada aren't new. In 1982, the infamous softwood lumber dispute began when the U.S. accused Canada of unfair subsidies, an argument that's dragged on for decades. In 2018, Trump's administration reignited tensions with tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. Canada hit back with tariffs on sensitive U.S. goods, especially agricultural exports from swing states. Though the U.S. claims its tariffs are justified under national security, Canada argues they breached the USMCA United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. And while legal action at the World Trade Organization, WTO, is possible, history shows the U.S. has often brushed off unfavorable rulings. Now Tesla finds itself in the crosshairs. As trade tensions escalate, Canada has targeted the EV giant, striking where it hurts. Ottawa isn't just imposing tariffs, it's also stripping Tesla from its subsidy programs and weighing restrictions on the export of critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and nickel, resources essential for electric vehicle production. Is this a crippling blow for Tesla, or could it ignite an even greater trade war? From aluminum tariffs to resource restrictions, the U.S.-Canada conflict has gone beyond traditional disputes. It's becoming a full-blown battle over technology, energy, and future industry control. Why Tesla? Because by attacking the crown jewel of America's EV sector, Canada isn't just going after a company, it's sending a direct message to the Trump administration's electric vehicle ambitions. And with Ford, GM, and others dependent on similar materials, the stakes are only getting higher. This isn't just about Tesla facing tariffs. This is a threat to the entire U.S. electric vehicle industry. Why target Tesla specifically? It's no coincidence. Canada's choice was strategic. First, Tesla represents the pinnacle of American EV innovation. It's the face of U.S. dominance in the sector. If Canada wants to send a powerful message to Washington, going after Tesla makes it loud and clear. Tesla makes up more than half of EV sales in Canada, and slapping tariffs on the brand will hike prices and erode its market competitiveness. Second, Canada has big ambitions for its own EV industry. The government is pouring investments into local manufacturers like Lion Electric and VinFast, which has a plant in the country. It's also working closely with Ford and GM. By sidelining Tesla, Canada opens the door for its own companies to gain ground and capture a larger slice of the market. Third, Elon Musk is a polarizing figure in Canada. While he often clashes with U.S. authorities, he still symbolizes American corporate influence. Targeting Tesla is more than an economic decision. It's a political one. Canada is making a clear stand against Trump-era trade tactics and U.S. corporate dominance. But the fallout won't stop with Tesla. First, the North American EV supply chain is at risk. Canada is a critical source of essential battery materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. If those resources are restricted, the cost of producing EVs in the U.S. will soar, raising prices for everyone and stalling innovation. Ford, GM, Rivian, no one will be spared. Second, Tesla could lose a vital international market. Canada is one of Tesla's most important regions outside the U.S. Without incentives and with added tariffs, Canadian consumers could see Tesla prices rise by as much as $5,000, pushing cars like the Model S close to $115,000. Buyers may turn to homegrown brands or Chinese rivals like BYD, which is making moves in Canada. Third, the U.S. may retaliate. If tensions escalate, Washington could slap tariffs on Canadian cars and auto parts, harming major suppliers like Magna International and sending shockwaves through North America's interconnected auto industry. This is bigger than Tesla. It's a direct hit to the future of electric vehicles and a potential flashpoint in a new kind of trade war. Trump signs executive order. Is the Constitution at risk? What just happened? In a stunning move, Donald Trump has signed an executive order that could rewrite the rule of law in the United States. From now on, only the president or the attorney general can define what U.S. law means, effectively stripping power from independent agencies like the FEC, SEC, and EPA. This isn't the plot of a political thriller, it's real, and it could plunge America into the most serious constitutional crisis in modern history. This is not a spontaneous outburst or a controversial tweet. It's a formal executive order, crafted behind closed doors by White House legal advisors and signed into law. What's alarming isn't just the order itself, but where it could lead. Picture this. The EPA sets national clean water standards. Trump disagrees? He overrides them. The SEC flags financial misconduct. Trump ignores it. If the National Labor Relations Board rules in favor of workers, he can veto that decision outright. No debate, no oversight. This is far more than a political power play. It's an attempt to centralize authority in the hands of one man. If courts no longer have the final say, what happens to American democracy? What we're witnessing is not just reckless, it's calculated. If the president alone can decide what's legal, even in the face of Supreme Court rulings, we're no longer operating under a constitutional government. We're standing at the edge of authoritarianism. So what can we do? Silence is not an option. When democracy is under siege, inaction equals complicity. Whether you're a citizen, a lawmaker, or simply someone who cares, now is the time to speak up. Start by putting pressure on elected officials, especially Republican leaders. They need to hear loud and clear. Loyalty to democracy must come before loyalty to any one person. Remind them they serve the people, not a power-hungry executive. Take action, even if it feels small. Send letters, join local political campaigns, raise these concerns with friends, colleagues, and neighbors. Every conversation counts, every action matters, because silence is the most powerful weapon in the hands of those who seek control. And history has shown us, every dictatorship begins with fear and ends in the quiet submission of its people. But that doesn't have to be our story. We still have a voice, we still have a choice, and we still have time. The real question isn't what Trump will do next. The real question is, will we have the courage to stand up and defend the very foundation of our democracy? The time to act is now, not tomorrow, not after the next election, right now. Will you raise your voice, or will you watch democracy slip away in silence? In times like these, silence is not just dangerous, it's a choice. And every choice we make now shapes the future we leave behind. Whether it's the collapse of an industry, the erosion of civil rights, or the rise of unchecked power, we must decide where we stand. So now we turn the question to you. What do you think about these unfolding events? Do you believe democracy is truly at risk? Is the American dream slipping away, or is there still hope to reclaim it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your voice. Let's start a conversation that matters. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the issues shaping our world. Together we can stay informed, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay empowered. Thanks for watching.